President Karzai, 2 days from now, we'll see a new American president take office in Washington. Now, if I can take you back 8 years, when President Obama came to power, he spoke about his new AF-Pak policy.
Yes.
He hyphenated Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yes.
It also appointed special envoys. So, under the new Trump administration, for instance, how do you see America's policy vis-a-vis Afghanistan going forward? Are you in favor of the status quo, or would you require or suggest some changes going forward?
Definitely not. Not only that I'm not in favor of the status quo, but I'm extremely against it. That has been my problem with the U.S. government's in the past many years. President Obama is a very respectable person, a very dignified person. Immense respect for him personally, but we had strong disagreements on policies, on the way they conducted the so-called war on terror, with immense casualties to the Afghan people, but no results for us at all. Rather, it's worsening and worsening and worsening. To Mr. Trump, the President-elect of the United States, my message is a reconsideration in depth of the policy in fighting extremism and terrorism, and in going to the sources, the places where they spring up, where they're trained, where they're equipped, where they're used against us. Unless we go to the fundamentals of it there, things will keep getting out of hand and keep getting worse. Therefore, yes, a very strong and in-depth reconsideration of that policy.
So how do you expect the new American government to actually go ahead and do all of that you said just now? Is it going to be a more robust military response, or in collusion?
Well, they have to study. They have to study why they have failed. What are the causes of the failure? Was one of the allies not an ally with them, doing something else? Or was there some other explanation? So is it a failure? Or do they know what it is that they are doing and others are doing? If it's a failure, they must get together with big countries, superpowers in this region. This region has now the superpowers of the world. India is there, China is there, and Russia is there. The US must explain and seek cooperation from them. But if they feel they have failed, then they must also come and present their report and ask for help.
So is that an indictment of sorts of Pakistan, given the history that we have witnessed over the last decade or more? How would you specifically assess Pakistan's role? Because every time all the arguments eventually boil down to Pakistan's role, good or bad, in the security situation of training in our neighborhood.
It does, unfortunately. It does, unfortunately. When we say Pakistan, we don't mean the people of Pakistan. Nobody means the people of Pakistan. The people of Pakistan are as much victims as we all are, as you in India are, as we in Afghanistan are. So it is also to salvage the people of Pakistan from the grips of this misery that we must struggle as fellow human beings, as neighbors for both of us. When we say Pakistan in this case, we mean specifically the entities within the establishment of Pakistan who use extremism as a tool, who have been using extremism as a tool for a long, long time now. And brotherly, as neighbors, we hope that common sense, good sense will prevail over them, to see that they can have what they seek through different means. And those different means are available. World history has shown them to be available. So that is what we say. So this is an indictment, no doubt. Clear.
And President Karzai, if I might draw your attention now to the bilateral dimension of India-Afghanistan ties. I remember you telling me several months ago that India seems to not have overcome its reluctance or diffidence to go the full distance insofar as establishing a robust defense and security cooperation with Afghanistan is concerned. Probably because India is constantly looking over its shoulders at some countries or capitals around the world. So what's your assessment of the mood in New Delhi today, especially vis-a-vis Afghanistan, and what can we expect to happen or take place going forward?
Well, India is an old civilization. It's a sage country. And you'll be surprised. As much as our brothers in Pakistan were objecting to Indian presence in Afghanistan, India, on the other hand, and on the contrary, was thinking of Pakistan's sensitivities in Afghanistan, was trying to avoid actions that may cause more concern in Pakistan. And this I've told the Pakistan leaders repeatedly that look, India is looking at it from a very different point of view, and a positive one. So where India refrained from giving us what we needed, it was, in their view, for a larger good of this region. Today, yes, of course, India considers to give us more support. It has given us more support. It has given us massive support for social mobility in Afghanistan, education and development and all of that. But India is also now helping us more in military hardware and in training of our forces, which is most welcome. And this change was necessary. I'm glad this change has come about, and India is now definitely doing more.
And in that context, President Karzai, is trilateral cooperation or sub-regional cooperation the way forward? Because every time some initiative is discussed or debated, the stumbling block remains Pakistan because of its own reservations vis-a-vis India or its neighbors. So is sub-regional cooperation or trilateral, say between Afghanistan, Iran and India, for instance, is a model or a template that other countries in the region can replicate?
One that we are forced to adopt. Had Pakistan been cooperative and open to transit and trade and transportation across borders between our three countries, we would have been the most important thriving hub in this wider region, with tremendous mobility, with tremendous generation of resources and wealth for our people. If that is denied, of course, nations, individuals, people can't sit idle. They seek alternatives. So this alternative is a very good one. In any case, India, Iran and Afghanistan need to cooperate and explore ways for the betterment of life, for us, the three countries, and for the region. So it's a very well done project, very well thought project, and we must do it by all means. We also hope that Pakistan one day will recognize that it's good for all to have the freedom of movement and of trade.
And President Karzai, just to go back to a point which you made just a short while ago, you said the international community must address the root of the problem, the actual root of the problem in Afghanistan as it exists today. And here I'm reminded of the Islamic State, for instance, or the so-called Islamic State, which might be on the retreat, but its virulent ideology remains a very potent threat.
It is.
In the same case, similarly, the Taliban remains a threat nevertheless, in spite of it being on the retreat or on the defensive of late. But there's always a possibility of it bouncing back, and which we've seen repeatedly over the last couple of years especially. So how do you assess the Taliban as it exists today? Is it going to be a divisive force in the near future, or you think it will eventually come around with help of the international players or the stakeholders?
Well, there are two elements here. One, as I mentioned earlier, those Taliban who are from Afghanistan, who want to return to Afghanistan to a peaceful life, they must be welcomed, they must be helped. But those other elements who have an ideological foundation based on using religion for political purposes against the rest of us, and led by sinister organizations, that is a very different issue. Daesh is of this sort, of a type that is not looking at the well-being of others, but at the destruction of others. That's their motive, that's their agenda, that's their purpose. And we know who backs them in our region. They're coming from our neighborhood, and unfortunately, again, in this case. So when I say the roots, or the roots where they spring up, and the sanctuaries and the training grounds, I'm not only speaking of Daesh and a few others, but I'm speaking of several decades of this being allowed by the international community for one selfish reason or the other selfish reason. It is this that has to stop. And that's why the Americans need to look deeper and see that it doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help them. It doesn't help our brothers in Pakistan. So a change is required. And our region is, of course, now fully alive to the facts of it. Hopefully, this will happen. Yesterday, in Prime Minister Modi's remarks, he referred in very eloquent words to China and to friendship between the two countries. China, too, suffers from extremism and radicalism. So it is only natural that China and India would join hands and together tell our friends in Pakistan, with Russia on board with us, with Iran, that, look, we have to live a different life. And what you're doing is neither helping you, of course, it's hurting others.
President Karzai, in conclusion, I'd like to remind you of what you told me several months ago, that you see yourself as an elder statesman. You don't visualize or see playing a more active political role in Afghanistan going forward. Do you still hold by that thought, or you think you are open to the idea of becoming president?
No. Well, I was president for 13 years. And why should I go back there? Let the new generation of Afghans emerge. Let them come and serve this country. I will be available to help them the way I can, where I can. No, I will not return, but I will, of course, be very much active and vibrant when it comes to the security of this region, when it comes to protecting us from the bad that's coming to us.
And President Karzai, very briefly, what's your impressions about that so-called delicate balance of power between the president of Afghanistan today and the chief executive officer? And in terms of domestic political constituency, are you, as the elder statesman, happy with the turn of events, or you think there's scope for improvement?
Of course, I'm not happy. We must return Afghanistan as soon as possible to peace and stability. And I hope that the current arrangement in Afghanistan will work and that we return soon to the constitutional instructions of the country.
Great. On that note, President Karzai, may I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure talking to you.
Great pleasure.
Thank you so much.
All the best. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good. Very good. Thank you.